Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. Let me take you somewhere you've probably never been. Inside the mind of a man who watched his marriage snap in silence. There was a bowl of soup. A spoon clinked against porcelain. And then she said it. It was just a one-time mistake. It meant nothing. Our family shouldn't break apart over this. She said it like we were talking about forgetting to buy milk. My wife, Lorna, was sitting across the table. Her hair still damp from the shower. Her favorite sweater sleeves pushed halfway up her arms. Her lips were trembling, but her eyes were terrifyingly still. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was too busy trying to remember how to swallow. It wasn't the words that crushed me. It was the timing. Because 20 minutes earlier, I hadn't known anything. Not a thing. I thought we were doing okay. I was tired, sure. Work had been stressful. Alden had a sore throat. We still hadn't fixed the dryer. Life was just, life. Unremarkable. And then her phone buzzed. I only glanced at it because it lit up near my elbow. A name I didn't recognize. A message I wasn't meant to see. Still replaying last night. You're dangerous when you smile like that. I didn't say anything at first. I just turned the screen around and placed it face up on the table between us. She stared at it. Blinking. Once. Twice. Then slowly raised her hand to cover her mouth. And then the confession came. Rushed. Breathless. Like she'd been waiting for it to be forced out of her. I didn't plan it. It wasn't emotional. I barely even remember parts of it. It was the conference trip. The bar. He was charming. I don't even know why I let it happen. I felt. And then came the line that keeps echoing in my skull. It meant nothing. That's what she said. It meant nothing. So why does it feel like everything's ruined? The soup went cold. The room stayed quiet. And I just stared at the wall, blinking back something between nausea and tears. She kept talking. Offered explanations I didn't ask for. Offered solutions I didn't believe in. Offered to erase the memory like it was written in pencil. But nothing she said mattered anymore. Because in my mind, I was standing in that hotel hallway, watching her open the door to someone else. Laughing. Flirting. Choosing. Choosing not me. And now here she was, hoping I'd be the one to glue it all back together because she didn't want the family to break apart. She made the mess. And I'm the one sweeping in the dark. The strangest part about betrayal is how normal everything looks afterward. The living room still smelled like lemon cleaner. Our kids' backpacks still hung on their little hooks by the door. The fridge still hummed like it always did. But something invisible had cracked, and it wasn't the kind of thing you could glue or tape. It was silent. Deep. Personal. That night, I slept on the edge of the bed. Not the couch. Not the guest room. She asked me to stay, and I agreed. Not because I forgave her, or trusted her, or felt remotely okay, but because I didn't want our son Alden waking up and asking why Dad's shoes were missing from the hallway. So I lay there beside her. Fully clothed. Facing away. Her breathing was uneven. She kept whispering my name like she was hoping to catch me mid-dream. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My brain was playing her confession on loop, like a twisted bedtime story. It meant nothing. It meant nothing. Then why does it mean everything now? At 3:14 a.m., I got up to pee and found her phone charging in the kitchen. I stood there for 10 minutes, just staring at it, debating whether to look. I didn't want to be that guy. The one who digs. The one who obsesses. But I'd already been made a fool once. And fools learn, right? So I opened it. No password. That was new. She had removed it. Probably trying to show transparency. But the damage was already done. It was like pulling a bandage off a scar that wasn't even healed yet. The message history with Miles T. Wellness Fund was mostly gone. She'd clearly deleted everything before the trip. But I found an old photo in her recently deleted folder. It wasn't scandalous. Not explicit. Just a selfie of her in a hotel room mirror, wearing one of those hotel robes, with a glass of wine in hand. The way she smiled in it, the tilt of her head, the sparkle in her eyes, it wasn't for me. I knew that immediately. I'd seen her smile for me for over a decade. This was different. Suddenly I felt dizzy. My stomach cramped. I wanted to throw up into the sink. I wanted to scream. I wanted to wake her up and demand answers she probably didn't have. But instead, I put the phone down, walked into the backyard barefoot, and just stood there in the grass under the moonlight. Everything was quiet, except for one thought pounding in my skull: she gave a piece of herself to someone else, a piece I thought was mine alone. In the morning, she tried to act normal. Made French toast. Cut it into heart shapes for Alden, like it was Valentine's Day. Kissed me on the cheek as if the night before hadn't happened. As if love could be reheated like leftover coffee. But I wasn't hungry. Not for food. Not for apologies. Not for anything. At one point, she pulled me aside while the kids were watching cartoons and said, "Please, don't shut me out. I need you." She needed me. And all I could think was, where was that need when you closed the hotel room door behind you? I didn't yell. I never do. That's the thing about being the quiet husband, you don't get to have dramatic outbursts. You just absorb. You absorb and absorb until something inside corrodes. So instead of responding, I nodded. Just nodded. Like a polite stranger. Because that's what we were now. Strangers who once shared wedding cake. And suddenly I realized, even if she never touches him again, she already left me. And I was the last one to know. 2 days passed before I said a complete sentence to her again. Not counting the polite murmurs around the kids, things like, "Yeah, sure," or "okay." Real words? No. Real words require emotional oxygen, and I was suffocating. I started noticing things I hadn't before. How she tapped her fingers when nervous. How often she checked her reflection when she thought no one was watching. How her smile stayed just a second too long when she texted. And it wasn't paranoia. It was clarity, the kind of awareness that only betrayal can trigger. She thought we were in the early stages of repair. I think she assumed that not screaming meant I was softening. She brought home a new plant for the kitchen. Lavender, her favorite. She even texted me a meme once, something silly with a cat and a toaster, followed by 3 crying laughing emojis. I stared at it like it was written in a different language. Was I supposed to laugh? Forget? Move on? Then came the therapy idea. I booked us a session. Just a starting point, she said one evening, like she was offering soup on a rainy day. It's a woman, Dr. Kalin. Neutral ground. You don't even have to talk if you don't want to. What I wanted was the truth. But therapy was a step. So I agreed. Because I wanted her to know I wasn't the weak one here. I wasn't going to crumble because she had a moment of emptiness. The session was scheduled for Thursday at 5:30 p.m. But Wednesday night, something happened that made therapy irrelevant. It was nearly midnight. She had already gone to bed. I was lying on the couch, watching some nature documentary with the volume barely audible. Not paying attention. My eyes were dry. My body hollow. I think I just wanted background noise to drown out the inside of my head. Then I heard a buzz from her phone. It was on the kitchen counter again. Charging. Lit up. Another message. This time, the name wasn't Miles T. Wellness Fund. It was just, M. No full name. No workplace tag. Just one capital letter, like the sender had been reduced to a secret code. I didn't move at first. I told myself, don't look. It's a trap. You already know enough. Let it go. But then another message came. Still can't believe how good that night felt. Do you ever think about it? Sometimes I wish it wasn't just one time. I felt my chest tighten like someone was cinching a rope around my ribs. The one thing she swore, the one-time mistake, wasn't even respected by the other party. To him, it wasn't just a drunk accident. It was something memorable. Repeatable. Desirable. I didn't open the messages. I didn't need to. I walked upstairs, opened the bedroom door, and stood in the doorway. She stirred. Sat up, squinting. Lyle. What is it? And I said the first full sentence I'd spoken to her in 3 days. Do you regret not deleting him completely? She froze. Pulled the covers higher like that would shield her from the truth. I haven't responded, she whispered. I swear. I haven't said a word. But she didn't deny that he reached out. That he still had the access. The comfort. The confidence to text her like she was still his. I turned and walked out. Slammed the door harder than I meant to. The dog barked downstairs. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something close to rage. Because now I wasn't just the betrayed husband. I was the backup plan. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even pretend. I sat at the kitchen table until sunrise, nursing a cup of coffee I never drank and staring at the cabinets like they held some answer. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that message. Sometimes I wish it wasn't just one time. That phrase gnawed at me like rust on metal. Casual, hopeful, unfinished. He was still reaching for her. Still waiting in the shadows of her inbox. When she came downstairs the next morning, she looked wrecked. Puffy eyes. Uneven breathing. She was wearing one of my old shirts, the one she always used to steal because it was cozy and smelled like me. Now it felt like a costume, a sad attempt to rewind something that already snapped. She said good morning. I didn't respond. She said my name. I stood and walked past her without a word. I couldn't look at her. Not because of what she did. But because of what she didn't do, block him, cut him off, slam the door so hard on that mistake that even memory couldn't crawl back in. I went into town that day. Didn't say where. Just drove. Ended up in a parking lot outside an old bookstore I hadn't visited in years. I sat in the car with the engine off and watched people go in and out, smiling, holding coffee cups, talking about absolutely nothing with the kind of lightness that felt alien to me now. I used to be that guy. The one who wandered into stores without purpose, bought a book based on the cover, and felt okay inside his own skin. Now I was just a man orbiting a crater. Later that afternoon, I pulled into the driveway and saw her sitting on the front steps. She looked small. Shrunken. She was holding a piece of paper, and when she saw me, she stood up and handed it to me without saying a word. It was a printout of a message, a screenshot from her phone. It was a draft. Please stop messaging me. What happened in D.C. was a mistake. I love my husband. I want to repair my marriage. Please don't contact me again. I read it 3 times. Then looked up. Did you send it? She hesitated. It was the hesitation that broke me. I was going to, she said softly. I needed time to make sure I meant it exactly how it sounded. Time. I snapped, and my voice cracked in a way I didn't expect. You needed time to mean that you don't want to see the man you cheated on me with again. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tears gathered, but she didn't let them fall. I'm trying, she whispered. No, I said, shaking my head. You're trying to manage this. Not fix it. There's a difference. That night, I took a blanket and slept in the car. Not because I wanted drama. But because I needed space where I could breathe without choking on the air between us. The silence in that house had turned into a living thing. It stalked the hallways, crept between the sheets, and sat between every bite of food we tried to pretend tasted normal. Around 2 a.m., she came out to the driveway. Knocked softly on the window. I rolled it down just a crack. I sent the message, she said. I blocked him. I deleted the thread. I even deleted his number. You can check, if you want. I didn't say anything. Then she added, I know that doesn't fix anything. But it's the truth. Finally. And for the first time since her confession, I saw her eyes again, not her defenses, not her guilt, just her. And I realized something terrifying. Even if she really did want to fix it now, I wasn't sure I wanted her to. The next morning came with a strange stillness. Not peace. Just a pause, like the moment before thunder. The house was quiet, but not the good kind. It was the sort of quiet that follows shouting you weren't there to hear, like ghosts had argued through the walls overnight and left their silence behind. She was already up when I came inside from the car. The kitchen smelled like coffee, but it didn't comfort me anymore. She handed me a mug, and for a brief second, I remembered the mornings we used to laugh at nothing, how we'd argue over the last piece of toast or make faces at each other through the steam. That version of us lived in another universe now. She sat across from me at the table. No makeup. No jewelry. Just her and her regret, wrapped up in the same hoodie she wore the night our second kid was born. She told me she wanted to talk. Not to defend herself. Not to re-explain things I couldn't unhear. But to be honest. Raw. Whatever that was supposed to mean. I nodded, though part of me wasn't ready. Still, I listened. She said it started innocently. Miles had transferred to her department about 9 months ago. Charismatic. Witty. Everyone liked him, including their boss. She said he always knew how to break tension in meetings. That they'd joke during coffee breaks. Talk about old movies. Kids. Stress. That she thought nothing of it, until she did. Apparently, one night after work, she vented about me. About our distance. The routines. How safe I was. That word, safe, hit me like a slap. I thought that was a compliment in marriage. Turns out, it was the start of her reasons. She told me the flirtation built up in fragments. Glances. Unspoken suggestions. Until the conference in D.C. when things tipped. He invited her up for a drink. She said she knew it was a bad idea. Knew what might happen. But she went anyway. She paused when she said that. Her voice cracked. But not in the way I expected. It wasn't guilt that broke her, it was nostalgia. That realization sent a chill through me so deep, I felt it behind my teeth. She admitted they only spent one night together. No repeated affairs. No second chances. But after it happened, he kept reaching out. She'd respond at first. Brief replies. Eventually, she ghosted him, or tried to. Until I found that message. I stared at her, searching her face for something real, something mine, and I swear, for the first time in our marriage, I felt like I was sitting across from a stranger who wore my wife's skin. When she asked if I had anything to say, I laughed. It came out of me like a cough, unwanted and bitter. Yeah, I said. You've been grieving what we had, and I'm still stuck trying to understand what we lost. She tried to reach for my hand across the table. I pulled back. Not dramatically. Just, enough. Enough for her to feel it. Enough for her to know that her version of remorse didn't come with immediate redemption. Later that day, I went upstairs to grab something from the bedroom closet. I hadn't opened her side in days, maybe weeks. I just needed a hoodie, but what I found made me stop cold. Inside the pocket of her jacket was a folded photo. An actual printed photo. From the conference. It was of her and Miles. Standing close. Laughing at something off camera. Her hand lightly resting on his arm. She had kept it. Not on her phone. Not online. But in her coat, close to her body. Like a secret she hadn't let go of yet. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream. I just folded it back up and slipped it into my wallet. Not as a trophy. Not as blackmail. But as proof, for myself, that love doesn't always rot in public. Sometimes, it dies quietly, in coat pockets and smiles meant for someone else. By the time the weekend rolled around, everything in our home felt like a set piece from a play neither of us wanted to perform anymore. We weren't fighting. We weren't shouting. We were simply existing in the same rooms, orbiting around the tension like satellites around a dying planet. Even the dog, Jasper, seemed off, trailing after me like he knew something terrible was coming but couldn't bark it out. I didn't tell her about the photo. I carried it with me everywhere now. I'd taken it out at work more times than I could count, sometimes during lunch breaks, sometimes in meetings, sometimes in the bathroom with the door locked and the lights off. I don't even know what I was looking for. Maybe a crack in her smile. Maybe a hesitation in her fingers on his arm. Anything to tell me that she hadn't already left me in that moment, even if her body came home afterward. That Saturday, she made breakfast like nothing was wrong. French toast. Again. She poured coffee like she didn't know it reminded me of the morning I found out. She talked about maybe repainting the guest room. Said she wanted to reclaim the space since I'd been sleeping there so much lately. I didn't answer her. But I watched her. Closely. Studying the way she said things. How she avoided certain words. How she kept darting her eyes toward the hallway when she thought I wasn't looking. Later, while she was in the shower, I did something I hadn't planned. I opened her laptop. It wasn't because I was desperate. I already knew what she did. I had the timeline. The confessions. The evidence. But something inside me whispered that there was still more, something untouched, something she hadn't confessed because it hadn't been asked. The laptop booted without a password. Another new habit she developed in her show of transparency. I opened her browser, then her email. I scrolled past the inbox. Nothing suspicious. All scrubbed and clean, like a house staged for potential buyers. But I checked the archived folders. And that's where I found it. An email chain between her and a contact saved only as L.E. Subject line, that weekend. There were only 2 emails. But that was all it took to knock the air out of my lungs. The first one was from her, dated 2 weeks before the D.C. trip, meaning before the accidental hotel room encounter. I keep thinking about what you said. About stepping away from my life just long enough to remember what it's like to feel chosen again. I don't know if I'm ready. But I think I want to be. Just promise me this won't break everything. The second was his reply. You'll be surprised how easy it is not to feel guilty when you realize it's your turn to live a little. You've given enough, Lorna. You deserve something just for you. One weekend won't kill a marriage, unless it was already dead. My fingers shook as I read it. My whole body did. Because this wasn't a spontaneous mistake. This wasn't 2 glasses of wine and a bad decision. This was planned. Discussed. Something she considered before doing it. And then she sat on our couch and looked me in the eye and told me it was a one-time thing that meant nothing. No, Lorna. It meant something. It meant everything. When she came downstairs in a robe, towel around her head, I didn't even look at her. I grabbed my keys and left. Drove for hours. No music. No destination. Just silence and the sound of betrayal clawing against the inside of my skull. I ended up in a grocery store parking lot 30 miles out of town. Bought a bottle of water. Stared at the cashier like he was a priest and I was trying to confess through my eyes. He didn't notice. No one ever does. That night, I returned home after midnight. She was waiting on the couch. Eyes puffy. Knuckles white. "Where were you?" she asked. I dropped the printed emails on the coffee table. Her face drained of color so fast I thought she might faint. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just said, "Tell me this was still a mistake. Tell me you didn't plan to betray me." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Nothing at all. And in that moment, her silence told me more than her words ever could. I used to think that the worst part of betrayal was the lie. The moment you realize the person you trusted the most was capable of something that splits your world in two. But now I know that's not the hardest part. The hardest part is when they finally tell you everything, and you realize you were never crazy. You were right all along. She tried to explain it the next morning. Sat me down at the table, eyes hollow, voice flat. It wasn't even a performance anymore. She had no energy left to fake emotion. She looked like someone trying to salvage a burning house with a glass of water. "I never meant to fall into it," she said, voice barely above a whisper. But it didn't feel like falling. It felt like drifting. Quietly. Slowly. I told myself I was still yours, even while I was becoming someone else. I didn't speak. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because everything I wanted to scream would have made the kids run and hide. They were upstairs, probably watching cartoons, oblivious that their mother had emotionally vacated the marriage months before her body did. She kept going. She said Miles wasn't the only time she'd imagined leaving. That she had fantasized about a life where she wasn't someone's wife or mother. Where she could walk into a room and not be introduced by who she belonged to. That the conference trip was just the first time she crossed the line between thinking about escape and actually jumping the fence. I asked her why she came back. Why she didn't just keep going. She looked up at me with those tear-smeared eyes and said, "Because you're the only man who ever made me feel safe." And I didn't know how to leave that behind. There it was again, safe. Like I was a house she hid in during storms. A blanket she used when she was cold. Not a partner. Not an equal. Not someone she could still love without pity in her voice. And then came the final blow. She told me she'd been in touch with a divorce mediator. Just once. Weeks ago. Before I found the messages. She hadn't told me because she changed her mind afterward. Because she realized she still wanted us. Wanted. Us. Two words that no longer fit together. I stood up. Not out of anger. Just because I couldn't be in that chair anymore. Couldn't be across from her. Couldn't breathe. I walked into the backyard and stared at the fence I built with my own hands 6 years ago. I remember digging into that rocky soil, sweating through a July heatwave, getting splinters in my palms. I built it because the kids needed boundaries, safety. I built it because that's what you do when you plan to stay forever. And yet the woman I built my life with had spent months building an escape tunnel right under my feet. That night, I stayed at a cheap motel on the edge of town. No windows that opened. A bed that smelled like bleach. I stared at the ceiling for hours, asking myself questions I didn't want answers to. Had she ever loved me? Did she miss me during the affair? Did she ever, even for a second, think I wouldn't find out? I think what broke me most was realizing how little it took for her to risk everything. One conference. One man. One accidental night. And now here I was, sleepless, hollowed out, with nothing left but a wallet photo and a truth too heavy to carry. She texted me just before midnight. Please come home. I can't sleep without knowing where you are. I didn't respond. I lay there in the silence, staring at the cracked ceiling, finally understanding what it meant to feel nothing at all. It's strange how endings don't always come with slammed doors or final arguments. Sometimes, they arrive with stillness. Like the kind that creeps in just before the sun rises, when the world forgets to move. I checked out of the motel early. The guy at the desk didn't even look up when I returned the key. I sat in the parking lot for half an hour, watching the steam curl from my coffee lid, trying to convince myself to drive home. Not to forgive. Not to forget. But to close the loop. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as it always had. Same porch light. Same cracked front step. But I didn't feel like the same man who built his life behind those walls. She was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in. She didn't rush me. Didn't cry. She just looked up, quiet, almost bracing for the weight of my choice. And that's when I finally spoke. I'm not leaving because you made a mistake, I said. I'm leaving because I've spent too long being the only one holding us together. Her lips trembled, but she nodded. She didn't argue. Maybe she knew I wasn't trying to hurt her. Maybe, in some strange way, she understood that my walking away wasn't an act of revenge, it was the first act of self-respect I'd given myself in years. I moved into a rental about 10 minutes away. 2 bedrooms. Nothing fancy. But the first night I sat on the porch with Jasper curled at my feet, I realized something: I could breathe again. Deep, full, real breaths. The kids adjusted better than I expected. We kept routines. Movie nights. Pizza Fridays. I even started drawing with Mina again, something we hadn't done since she was 7. We laughed. Not forced laughter, but real, shoulder-shaking giggles. It was like parts of me were waking up that I forgot even existed. Lorna and I are civil now. Respectful. We text about the kids. She's still in the house. For now. But we both know it's not home anymore, not in the way it was. I go to therapy twice a week. Alone. Not to heal the marriage, but to understand how I lost myself inside it. I'm learning that forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means releasing yourself from someone else's burden. And maybe, that's enough. I don't hate her anymore. I did for a while. I hated how she looked at me like I was something to feel sorry for. I hated the betrayal. The lies. The fact that she planned it, even if only in fragments. But now, I don't feel anger. I feel distance. And peace. I'm not perfect. I'm still quiet. Still awkward. Still learning how to be alone. But every morning I wake up without a line next to me, I remember what truth feels like. And that feels like winning. Thanks for watching this story unfold here on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced a moment in life that changed you forever, whether it broke your heart or gave you the courage to walk away, share it in the comments below. We read every one, and your story might just help someone else feel less alone. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, sometimes, walking away is the most powerful thing you'll ever do.